Good evening and welcome to Sun Meadow Temple. We're so happy you've joined us. My name is Alba and I use she, her pronouns. This is our second June observance, and I'm so happy you are here. As always, the service is recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel. Please remember to sign up for our community art project, which is the Giant's Pentagram, which is still ongoing. And then we'll open today with our opening words, which will appear on the slide behind you. Please read along at home or listen as I read the words aloud. We welcome you into the light of the gods and light this flame in celebration. May its brightness symbolize our connection to the gods and the natural world. May you join us in this community of faith, cherishing love and with open hearts. So if you remember, our theme for this month is the hierarchy of nature, and our readings today is one of my least favorite texts of all time, and you will definitely see why when I start to read it. De Rerum Natura, or On the Nature of Things, by Lucretius, translated by William Ellery Leonard, and De Officiis by Cicero, translated by Walter Miller. And we'll begin with On the Nature of Things. And now to what remains, since I've resolved by what arrangements all things come to pass. Through the blue regions of the mighty world, how we can know what energy and cause started the various courses of the sun and the moon's goings, and by what far means they can succumb, the while with thwarted light and veil with the shade the unsuspecting lands, when, as it were, they blink and then again, with open eye survey all regions wide, resplendent with white radiance, I do now return unto the world's primeval age, and tell what first the soft young fields of earth with earliest patrician had decreed, to raise in air unto the shores of light, and to entrust unto the wayward winds. In the beginning, earth gave forth, around the hills, and over all the length of plains, the race of grasses in the shining green. The flowery meadows sparkled all aglow with greening color, and thereafter, lo, unto the divers kind of trees was given an emulous impulse mightily to shoot with a free rein aloft into the air. As feathers and hairs and bristles are begot, the first on members of the 4-foot breeds, and on the bodies of the strongy winged, thus the new earth first of all put forth grasses and shrubs, and afterward begot the mortal generations. There upsprung innumerable in modes innumerable, after diverging fashions, for from sky these breathing creatures never can have dropped, nor the land dwellers ever have come up out of sea pools of salt. How true remains, how merited is that adopted name of earth, the mother, since out of earth are all begotten. Even now arise from out of the loams how many living things, concreted by the rains and heat of the sun. Wherefore 'tis less a marvel if they sprang in long ago more many, and more big, matured of those days in the fresh young years of earth and ether. First of all, the race of the winged ones and party-colored birds, hatched out in springtime, left their eggs behind. As nowadays in summer tree crickets do leave their shiny husks of own accord, seeking their food and living. Then it was this earth of thine first gave unto the day the mortal generations, for prevailed among the fields abounding hot and wet. And hence, where any fitting spot was given, there gan to grow womb cavities by roots affixed to earth. And when in ripened time the age of the young within, that sought the air and fled the earth's damps, had burst these wombs, oh then would nature thither turn the pores of earth, and make her spurt from open veins a juice, like unto milk, even as a woman now is filled at childbearing with sweet milk. Because all that swift stream of ailment is thither turned unto the mother breaths. There earth would furnish to the children food. Warmth was their swaddling cloth, the grass their bed, abounding in soft down. Earth's newness then would rouse no dour spells of bitter cold, nor extreme heats, nor winds of mighty powers. For all things grow and gather strength through times, in like proportions. And then the earth was young. Wherefore, again, how merited is that adopted name of Earth, the Mother, since she herself begat the human race, and at one well-nigh fixed time brought forth each breast that ranges raving round about upon the mighty mountains, and all birds aerial with many a varied shape. But lo, because her bearing years must end, she ceased, like a woman worn to eld. For lapsing aeons change the nature of the whole world, and all things needs must take one status after other, nor aught persists forever like itself. All things depart, nature she changeth all, compelleth all to transform. Lo, this moulders down, a slack with weary ild, and that, again, prospers in glory, issuing from contempt. In such wise, then, the lapsing aeons change, the nature of the whole wide world and earth taketh one status after the other, and what she bore of old she can now no longer, and what she never bore she can today. In those days also the telluric world strove to beget the monsters that have sprung with their astounding visages and limbs, the man-woman, a thing betwixt the twain, yet neither, and from either sex remote, some gruesome boggles orphaned of the feet, some widowed of the hands, and dumb horrors too without a mouth, or blind ones of no eye, or bulk all shackled by their legs and arms, cleaving unto the body fore and aft. Thuswise, that never could they do nor go, nor shun disaster, nor take the goods they would. And other prodigies and monsters, earth was then begetting of this sort in vain, since nature banned with horror their increase, and powerless were they to reach unto the coveted flower of fair maturity, or to find ailment, or to intertwine in the works of Venus. For we see there must concur in life conditions manifold. If life is ever by begetting life, to forge the generations one by one, first fluids must be, and next a path whereby the seeds of impregnation in the frame may ooze, released from the members all, last the possession of those instruments whereby the male with the female can unite, the one with the other in mutual ravishments. And in the ages after monsters died, perforce there perished many a stock, unable by propagation to force a progeny. For whatsoever creatures thou beholdest, breathing the breath of life, the same have been, even from their earliest age, preserving alive, by cunning or by valor, or at least by speed of foot or wing. And many a stock remaineth yet, because of use to man, and so committed to man's guardianship. Valor hath saved a live fierce lion breed, and many other terrorizing race, cunning the foxes, flight the antlered stags, light sleeping dog with faithful heart and breast. However, and every kind begot from seed of beasts of draught, as too the woolly flocks and horned cattle, all, my mimes, have been committed to guardianship of men. For anxiously they fled the savage beasts, and peace they sought, and their abundant foods, obtained with never labors of their own, which we secure to them as fit rewards for their good service. But these beasts, whom nature has granted naught of these same things, beasts quite unfit by own free will to thrive, and vain for any service unto us, in thanks for which we should permit their kind to feed and be in our protection safe, those, of a truth, were wont to be exposed, and shackled in the gruesome bonds of doom, as prey and booty for the rest, until nature reduced that stock to utter death. But centaurs ne'er have been, nor can there be, creatures of twofold stock and double frame, compact of members, alien in kind, yet formed with equal function, equal force, in every bodily part, a fact thou mayest. However, dull thy wits well learn from this. The horse, when his 3 years have rolled away, flowers in his prime of vigor, but the boy, not so, for oft even then he gropes on sleep after milky nipples of the breast, an infant still. And later, when at last the lusty powers of horses and stout limbs, now weak through lapsing life, do fail with age, lo, only then doth youth with flowering years begin for boys, and clothe their ruddy cheeks with the soft down. So never deem per case that from man and from the seed of horse, the beast of draught, can centaurs be composed, or e'er exist alive, nor can Silas be the half-fish bodies girdled with mad dogs, nor others of this sort in whom we mark members discordant each with each, for ne'er at one same time they reach their flower of age, or gain and lose full vigor of their frame, and never burn with one same lust of love, and never in their habitats they agree, nor find the same foods equally delightsome. Sooth, as one oft may see the bearded goats batten upon the hemlock, which is to man a violent poison. Once again, since flame is wont to scorch and burn the tawny bulks of the great lions as much as other kinds of flesh and blood existing in the land, how could it be that the chimera alone, with triple body, fore a lion, she, and aft a dragon, and betwixt a goat, might at the mouth from this body belch infuriate flame, wherefore the man who feigns such beings could have been engendered. When earth was new and the young sky was fresh, basing his empty argument on new, may babble with like reason many whims into our ears, he'll say, perhaps, that then rivers of gold through every landscape flowed, that trees were wont with precious stones to flower, or that, in those far eons, man was born with such a gigantic length and lift of limbs as to be able, based on his feet, deep oceans to bestride, or with his hands to whirl the firmament around his head. For though in earth were many seeds of things, in old time in this telluric world first poured the breeds of animals abroad, still that is nothing of a sign that then such hybrid creatures could have begot, and limbs of all beasts heterogeneous have been together knit, because, indeed, the divers kinds of grasses and the grains, and the delightsome trees which even now spring abounding from within the earth, can ne'er be begotten with their stems, be grafted into one, but each sole thing proceeds according to its proper wont, and all conserve their own distinctions based in nature's fixed decree. Okay, so now we're going to move on to Deiphysius, and we're doing 2 sections of Deiphysius, so I will let you know when we skip to a later section in the middle of this. First of all, nature has endowed every species of living creature with the instinct of self-preservation, of avoiding what seems likely to cause injury to life or limb, and of procuring and providing everything needful for life, food, shelter, and the like. A common property of all creatures is also the reproductive instinct, the purpose of which is the propagation of the species, and also a certain amount of concern for their offspring. But the most marked difference between man and beast is this. The beast, just as far as it is moved by the senses and with very little perception of past or future, adapts itself to that alone which is present at the moment, while man, because he is endowed with reason, by which he comprehends the chain of consequences, perceives the causes of things, understands the relation of cause to effect, and of effect to cause, draws analogies and connects and associates the present and the future, easily surveys the course of his whole life, and makes the necessary preparations for its conduct. Nature likewise, by the power of reason, associates man with man. In the common bonds of speech and life, she implants in him above all, I may say, a strange tender love for his offspring. She also prompts men to meet in companies, to form public assemblies, and to take part themselves, and she further dictates, as a consequence of this, the effort on man's part to provide a store of things that minister his comforts and wants, and not for himself alone, but for his wife and children, and the others whom he holds dear, and whom he ought to provide. And this responsibility also stimulates his courage and makes it stronger for the active duties of life. Above all, the search after truth and its eager pursuit are peculiar to man. And so when we have leisure from the demands of business cares, we are eager to see, to hear, to learn something new. and we esteem a desire to know the secrets or wonders of creation as indispensable to a happy life. Thus we come to understand that what is true, simple, and genuine appeals most strongly to a man's nature. To this passion for discovering truth, there is added a hungering, as it were, for independence, so that a mind well molded by nature is unwilling to be subject to anybody save one who gives rules of conduct or is a teacher of truth, or who, for in the general good, rules according to justice and law. From this attitude come greatness of soul and a sense of superiority to worldly conditions. And it is no mean manifestation of nature and reason that man is the only animal that has a feeling or for order, for propriety, for moderation in word and deed. And so no other animal has a sense of beauty, loveliness, harmony in the visible world, and nature and reason. Extending the analogy of this, the world of sense to the world of the spirit, find that beauty, consistency, order are far more to be maintained in thought and deed, and the same nature and reason are careful to do nothing in an improper or unmanly fashion, and in every thought and deed to do or think nothing capriciously. It is from these elements that is forged and fashioned that moral goodness, which is the subject of this inquiry, something that, even though it is not generally ennobled, is still worth of all honor, and by its own nature we correctly maintain. It merits praise, even though it be praised by none. So then here's the cut, and we've skipped from the beginning to about the midpoint. And we're continuing on with our discussion of ethics and things, but you'll see why. Well then, for a man to take something from his neighbor, and to profit by his neighbor's loss, is more contrary to nature than is death or poverty or pain or anything else that can affect either our person or our property. For in the first place, injustice is fatal to social life and fellowship between man and man. For if we are so disposed that each, to gain some personal profit, will defraud or injure his neighbor, then those bonds of human society which are most in accord with nature's laws must of necessity be broken. Suppose, by way of comparison, that each one of our bodily members should conceive this idea and imagine that it could be strong and well if it should draw off to itself the health and strength of its neighboring member. The whole body would necessarily be enfeebled and die. So, if each one of us should seize upon the property of his neighbors, and take from whatever he could appropriate to his own use, the bonds of human society must inevitably be annihilated. For, without any conflict with nature's laws, it is granted that everybody may prefer to secure himself rather than for his neighbor what is essential in the conduct of life. But nature's laws do forbid us to increase our means, wealth, and resources by despoiling others. But this principle is established not by nature's laws alone, that is, by the common rules of equity, but also by the statutes of particular communities in accordance with which in individual states the public interests are maintained. In all these it is with one accord ordained that no man shall be allowed for the sake of his own advantage to injure his neighbor, for it is to this that the laws have regard. This is their intent, that the bonds of union between citizens should not be impaired, and any attempt to destroy these bonds is repressed by the penalty of death, exile, imprisonment, or fine. Again, this principle follows much more effectually directly from the reason which is in nature, which is the law of gods and men. If anyone will hearken to the voice, and all will hearken to it who wish to live in accord with nature's laws, he will never be guilty of coveting anything that is his neighbor's, or of appropriating to himself what he has taken from his neighbor. Then, too, loftiness and greatness of spirit, and courtesy, justice, and generosity are much more in harmony with nature than are selfish pleasures, riches, and life itself. But it requires a great and lofty spirit to despise these latters and count them as naught when one weighs them over against the common weal. In like manner, It is more in accord with nature to emulate the great Hercules and undergo the greatest toil and trouble for the sake of aiding or saving the world, if possible, than to live in seclusion, not only free from all care, but reveling in pleasures and abounding in wealth, while excelling others also in beauty and strength. Thus Hercules denied himself and underwent toil and tribulation for the world, and, out of gratitude for his services, popular belief has given him a place on the council of the gods. The better and more noble, therefore, the character with which a man is endowed, the more does he prefer the life of service to the life of pleasure. Whence it follows that man, if he is obedient to nature, cannot do harm to his fellow man. Finally, if a man wrongs his neighbor to gain some advantage for himself, he must either imagine that he is not acting in defiance of nature, or he must believe that death, poverty, pain, or even the loss of children, kinsmen, or friends, is more to be shunned than an act of injustice against another. If he thinks he is not violating the laws of nature when he wrongs his fellow men, how is one to argue with the individual who takes away from man all that makes him man? But if he believes that, while such a course should be avoided, the other alternatives are much worse, namely death, poverty, pain, he is mistaken in thinking that any ills affecting either his person or his property are more serious than those affecting his soul. So that is the end of Cicero for today. And based on these readings, I want you to think about nature's influences and forms in our modern society. Do we still do like Cicero and draw our inspiration on how the world works from nature? Or are we forced to follow natural law still? Are we now violating it? Is this good or bad? The readings end up being a little longer, so that's all we're going to do for our discussion portion, and we'll now move into the ritual portion of the observance, and I will play the video. We leave this offering for our gods to symbolize our connection and devotion. We gift this rock to symbolize the stability of the gods in our world. We gift this water to accept the flow of our lives. We welcome life and bless our offerings with oil to share our riches. We embrace our connection to each other and the world and celebrate our revival. Please excuse the gap here. The re-recording caused this issue. We'll now move into our closing words, and I will read them aloud, and you can listen as I read the words aloud, or read along with me. As we move out into the world, let us remember our community of faith. Cherish love and open your heart as you walk through life. Hold dear the light of the gods and our connection with the natural world. Go forth in celebration and carry the light of connection within your heart. Good evening and welcome to Sun Meadow Temple. We're so happy you've joined us. My name is